Hello. Welcome back to Systematics Symphony of Species. In this video we are going to talk about natural populations and its relevance in taxonomy and systematics. A standard and comprehensive definition of a natural population in the context of biology, particularly in systematics and taxonomy, is: a natural population is a group of organisms of the same species that occupy a defined geographic area and freely interbreed with one another, sharing a common gene pool. This population exhibits genetic cohesion, ecological adaptation, and evolutionary continuity, with individuals interacting within the population and undergoing dynamic changes in size, structure, and composition over time. Natural populations are often characterized by genetic diversity, reproductive isolation from other populations, and adaptation to local environmental conditions, representing fundamental units of study in evolutionary biology, ecology, and taxonomy. Key attributes of natural populations. Geographic location. Natural populations are found in specific geographic regions or habitats. They are not artificially confined or manipulated by humans, such as in captivity or controlled breeding programs. Natural populations are typically confined to a specific geographic area, which may vary in size depending on the species and its ecological requirements. The geographic distribution of a population can be influenced by factors such as habitat availability, environmental conditions, and historical events. Interbreeding and adaptive traits. Individuals within a natural population have the potential to interbreed and produce fertile offspring. This interbreeding maintains genetic continuity within the population. While individuals within a natural population can interbreed with one another, they are often reproductively isolated from individuals belonging to other populations or species. Reproductive isolation can arise through various mechanisms such as geographic barriers, behavioral differences, or genetic incompatibilities. Natural populations often exhibit adaptive traits that are well suited to their local environment. These traits may arise through natural selection, allowing individuals within the population to better survive and reproduce in their specific ecological niche. Common gene pool. Members of a natural population share a common gene pool, which means they exchange genetic material through reproduction. This shared genetic variation contributes to the population's adaptability and evolution. Ecological interactions. Within their natural habitat, individuals in a population interact with one another and with other species in ways that are typical of their ecological role. These interactions can include competition for resources, predation, and mutualistic relationships. Genetic variation. Natural populations often exhibit genetic diversity, with individuals displaying variation in traits and characteristics. This genetic diversity can be important for a population's ability to adapt to changing environmental conditions. Dynamic and evolving. Natural populations undergo changes in size, structure, and composition over time due to factors such as birth, death, immigration, and emigration. Understanding the dynamics of population growth and decline is essential for studying the ecology and evolutionary history of species. Natural populations are dynamic and subject to evolutionary processes over time. They can change in response to selective pressures, environmental shifts, and other factors. Each natural population has its own unique evolutionary history, shaped by factors such as genetic drift, natural selection, and gene flow. By studying the evolutionary relationships between populations, taxonomists can reconstruct the phylogenetic tree of a species and understand its evolutionary trajectory. Population growth rate. The rate at which the population size changes over time, determined by birth rates, death rates, immigration, and emigration. Population dynamics. The changes in population size and structure over time, influenced by factors such as birth, death, immigration, and emigration, as well as environmental conditions and interactions with other species. Carrying capacity. The maximum population size that can be supported by the available resources and environmental conditions in a given habitat. It's important to note that the concept of natural populations is used in the context of ecological and evolutionary biology to study the dynamics and diversity of species within their native ecosystems. The term natural distinguishes these populations from artificially controlled or manipulated populations often found in laboratory settings or breeding programs. Some useful terms associated with populations in taxonomy. Metapopulation. A metapopulation consists of a group of spatially separated populations of the same species that interact with one another through occasional immigration and emigration. Each local population within a metapopulation occupies a habitat patch, and while some patches may go extinct over time, new ones may be colonized. Metapopulations are characterized by a dynamic balance between local extinctions and recolonizations, and they are often studied in the context of conservation biology and landscape ecology. Subpopulation. A subpopulation refers to a distinct and identifiable group of individuals within a larger population. Subpopulations may exhibit some level of genetic or ecological differentiation from one another due to factors such as geographic isolation, habitat specialization, or local adaptation. Subpopulations are often considered important units of conservation management, particularly when assessing the genetic diversity and viability of a species across its entire range. Geographic isolates. Geographic isolates are populations or groups of organisms that are separated from other conspecific populations by geographical barriers such as mountains, bodies of water, or expanses of unsuitable habitat. Geographic isolation can lead to genetic divergence and the formation of distinct lineages or subspecies over time, particularly if the isolated population experiences genetic drift or undergoes local adaptation to its unique environmental conditions. Demes. A deme is a local population or breeding unit within a larger population that is characterized by a degree of reproductive isolation from other demes. Demes may be spatially or temporally distinct, and they often exchange migrants with neighboring demes through gene flow. The concept of demes is important in the study of population genetics and evolutionary biology, as it helps to elucidate patterns of genetic variation, migration, and adaptation within and between populations. Founder effect. The founder effect occurs when a small group of individuals from a larger population establishes a new population in a different geographic area. Due to the limited genetic diversity of the founding population, the new population may exhibit genetic differences compared to the original population, leading to genetic drift and potentially the fixation of alleles that were rare or absent in the founding population. Bottleneck. A bottleneck event occurs when a population undergoes a drastic reduction in size, usually due to environmental disturbances, disease outbreaks, or human activities. Bottlenecks can lead to a loss of genetic diversity within the population, increased genetic drift, and an elevated risk of inbreeding depression. Populations that have experienced bottlenecks may exhibit reduced adaptability and resilience to future environmental changes. Effective population size. Effective population size is a concept used in population genetics to describe the size of an idealized population that would experience the same rate of genetic drift or loss of genetic variation as the actual population under consideration. Effective population size takes into account factors such as fluctuations in population size, variance in reproductive success among individuals, and levels of inbreeding. Gene pool. The gene pool refers to the total collection of genetic variants, alleles, present within a population or species. The gene pool represents the genetic diversity of the population and serves as the raw material for evolutionary change through processes such as natural selection, genetic drift, and gene flow. Population structure. Population structure refers to the spatial and genetic organization of individuals within a population. Populations may exhibit various levels of structure, including spatial substructuring, for example, due to geographic barriers, genetic substructuring, for example, due to genetic isolation or local adaptation, and social substructuring, for example, due to social behaviors or mating preferences. Hybrid zone. A hybrid zone is a geographic region where two genetically distinct populations interbreed and produce hybrid offspring. Hybrid zones can form between closely related species or between different populations within the same species. Hybrid zones are often studied to understand the dynamics of reproductive isolation, hybridization, and speciation. Populations play a crucial role in systematics and taxonomy, which are branches of biology focused on classifying and organizing organisms based on their evolutionary relationships and characteristics. Understanding populations is fundamental to accurately categorizing species and understanding their diversity. Here's why populations are important in systematics and taxonomy. Genetic variation. Populations represent groups of individuals within a species that share a common gene pool. Genetic variation within and among populations provides crucial information for taxonomists to distinguish between closely related species and understand their evolutionary relationships. Species delimitation. Population studies help in defining species boundaries. By examining the genetic, morphological, and ecological variation within and among populations, taxonomists can determine whether certain populations represent distinct species or are part of a single species. Evolutionary processes. Populations serve as the units upon which evolutionary processes act. By studying populations, taxonomists can investigate mechanisms such as natural selection, genetic drift, gene flow, and speciation, which drive evolutionary change and contribute to the diversification of life forms. Biogeography. Understanding the distribution and connectivity of populations across geographical regions provides insights into historical biogeography, migration patterns, and the factors influencing species distributions. This information aids taxonomists in reconstructing the evolutionary history and dispersal routes of organisms. Conservation. Recognizing and preserving distinct populations is critical for conservation efforts. Taxonomists identify and prioritize populations that are genetically distinct or face specific threats, helping conservationists to implement targeted conservation strategies. Overall, understanding populations and their dynamics is essential for accurately classifying and organizing organisms within the framework of taxonomy and systematics, and for interpreting their evolutionary relationships and diversity. Thank you for watching, and please share your comments and views.